The morning light crept through the tattered cloth that served as a curtain over the small window of Willa Ashcroft's rented room. At 23 years of age, Willa had already endured more hardship than many faced in a lifetime. The plague had claimed her husband just 8 months prior, and her parents not long before that. All that remained of her family was her 5-year-old son, Edmund, who slept peacefully beside her on the thin straw mattress they shared. Willa pushed a strand of golden blonde hair from her face as she rose, careful not to wake Edmund. Despite her poverty, her beauty remained unmarred. High cheekbones, clear blue eyes, and a delicate frame that somehow maintained its gentle curves despite the months of insufficient food. Her threadbare dress hung loosely from her shoulders, the neckline worn lower than she would prefer, revealing her collarbone and the gentle slope of her chest. She had tried to mend it countless times, but good fabric was beyond her means now. A knock at the door startled her. Visitors were rare, especially this early. She opened the door to find the village magistrate, a stern-faced man who rarely spoke to commoners without cause. "Willa Ashcroft?" he asked, consulting a parchment in his hand. "Yes," she replied cautiously. "I bring news. Your great-uncle, Bartholomew Ashcroft, has passed. In his will, he has left you his property, a small farm at the edge of Whisper Woods." Willa's breath caught. "I never knew I had a great-uncle. He was a reclusive man. The property is yours, should you want it. Though I must warn you, it has fallen into disrepair these many years." He handed her a rusty key and a sealed letter. "The directions to the farm are enclosed." After the magistrate left, Willa woke Edmund. "We have a home of our own," she told him, trying to hide her trepidation with enthusiasm. They gathered their few possessions and set out before their landlord could demand another week's rent. Following the crude map in the letter, they walked for nearly 3 hours before reaching a dilapidated wooden gate covered in moss and vines. Beyond the gate stood what could generously be called a farm. The cottage was little more than a shell, its roof partially collapsed, windows broken. The surrounding land was overgrown, a tangled mess of weeds and briars. A muddy pond lay stagnant near the cottage, and an old well stood nearby, its structure crumbling. "Is this our new home, Mother?" Edmund asked, his voice small with disappointment. "Yes," Willa answered, fighting back tears. "But we shall make it beautiful again." As they approached the cottage, a bark startled them. From behind the structure emerged a thin, scrappy dog with matted gray fur. It regarded them warily, but without aggression. "Look, Mother, we have a dog," Edmund exclaimed, his earlier disappointment forgotten. The dog kept its distance, but followed them as they explored the cottage. Inside was little better than outside. Dust covered everything, furniture was broken, and small creatures had made their homes in the corners. That night, Willa and Edmund cleared enough space in the main room to make a sleeping area. The dog, which Edmund had promptly named Rufus, curled up at their feet. "Tomorrow we shall begin making this our home," Willa promised, though she wondered how they would survive here. The land seemed barren, the cottage barely habitable. As dawn broke, Willa explored the property more thoroughly. Behind the cottage stood a small, tilting barn. Inside, she found rusted tools, rotted hay, and little else of value. The pond appeared to be shallow and muddy, unlikely to yield fish. The well, at least, still contained water, though she would need to clean it before drinking. She found herself drawn to a small box hidden beneath the floorboards of the cottage, discovered when Edmund had been jumping and broke through a weakened plank. Inside was a journal, its pages yellowed with age. "My dearest niece," it began, written in a shaky hand. "If you are reading this, I have passed from this world. Know that this farm holds more than meets the eye. Patience and persistence shall reveal its true worth." The cryptic message offered no specifics, but it kindled a small flame of hope in Willa's heart. Days turned to weeks as Willa worked to make the cottage habitable. She repaired what she could of the roof, cleaned the well, and began clearing land for a garden. Edmund played with Rufus, the two becoming inseparable companions. Strangers began to visit. First came Thomas Yardley, a wealthy merchant from the nearby town, offering to buy the property. "This land is worthless to you," he insisted, his eyes never quite meeting Willa's. "The soil is poor, the cottage beyond repair. I offer you a fair sum, enough to establish yourself elsewhere." His gaze lingered on her face, then drifted lower to where her dress revealed more than she wished. Willa clutched her shawl tighter and refused his offer. "This is our home now," she said firmly. After Yardley left, more visitors came, other merchants, men claiming to represent nobles, all offering to purchase the seemingly worthless farm. Each time, Willa refused. "Why do they want our farm, Mother?" Edmund asked after one such visit. "I know not," Willa admitted. "But your great-uncle's journal speaks of hidden value. Perhaps they know something we do not." Edmund and Rufus spent hours exploring every corner of the property. The boy's laughter, once rare after his father's death, now filled the air regularly. One afternoon, Willa looked up from her gardening to see Edmund and Rufus by the pond, the dog barking excitedly. "Mother! Mother!" Rufus keeps diving into the pond, Edmund called. Indeed, the dog would plunge his head beneath the murky surface, then emerge, barking at something below. "He has found something, I am sure of it," Edmund insisted. Willa approached cautiously. "The pond is too deep for you to explore, Edmund." That night, Willa read more of her great-uncle's journal. Between rambling accounts of daily life were curious passages. "The water conceals what the earth cannot hide," and "what sinks may rise again with patience." Could there be something in the pond? The thought kept her awake long into the night. The next day, a new visitor arrived, an elderly woman named Matilda from the village, bringing bread and cheese. "I knew your great-uncle," she said, settling at the roughly repaired table. "A good man, though people thought him odd. There were rumors, you know." "What rumors?" Willa asked, offering the woman a cup of water. "They said he guarded a secret. Some believed he once served a great lord and was entrusted with something precious." Matilda leaned closer. "There were those who searched this property while it stood empty, looking for treasure." "And did they find anything?" Matilda shook her head. "If there was anything to find, old Bartholomew hid it well." After Matilda left, Willa found Edmund and Rufus once again at the pond, the dogs still diving beneath the surface. "Perhaps we should investigate what fascinates Rufus so," Willa suggested, her curiosity finally overcoming her hesitation. Using a long branch, she probed the murky water. Near the center, the stick struck something solid. She tried to move it, but could not. "We shall need to drain some of this pond," she decided. It took days of labor to dig a channel leading from the pond to lower ground. Slowly, the water level fell, revealing a thick layer of mud. In the center, emerging from the muck, was a large, iron-banded chest. With Edmund's excited assistance, Willa managed to drag the heavy chest from the pond. It was locked, the keyhole clogged with mud. "How shall we open it?" Edmund asked, practically dancing with excitement. "I do not know," Willa admitted. They tried various tools from the barn, but the lock would not yield. That night, another passage in the journal caught her eye. "The key to one's future often lies in understanding one's past." She turned the key from the magistrate over in her hands, studying it in the firelight. Could it be so simple? The next morning, after cleaning both key and lock, Willa tried it. With a grinding sound, the lock turned. Inside the chest lay another box, smaller but finely crafted of polished wood. This one opened easily to reveal a breathtaking sight: gold coins, jewels, and a sealed letter. With trembling hands, Willa broke the seal and read. "To whomever inherits this farm, this treasure represents the dowry of Lady Eleanor Blackwell, stolen by her husband's family when she died in childbirth. I was her servant, entrusted with hiding it until her daughter came of age. Alas, the daughter also perished, leaving no rightful heir. May whoever finds this use it with honor." Willa sat back, stunned. Before she could fully comprehend what this meant, hoofbeats approached the cottage. Through the window, she saw Thomas Yardley accompanied by armed men. "Quickly, Edmund," she whispered, closing the chest. "We must hide this." They barely managed to conceal the treasure beneath the floorboards before Yardley pounded on the door. "I know what you have found," he declared without preamble when Willa opened the door. "The Blackwell fortune belongs to me by right of marriage to a distant cousin." "I know not what you mean," Willa replied steadily, though her heart raced. "We have found nothing of value here." "You lie," Yardley hissed, pushing past her into the cottage. "For weeks my men have watched you. We saw you drain the pond." He signaled to his men, who began searching the cottage, tearing up floorboards and breaking apart furniture. Rufus growled at the intruders, and Edmund clung to Willa's skirts. She stood tall, despite her fear. "You have no right," she said. "This property is mine, left to me legally." "A woman cannot own property without a husband," Yardley sneered. "Especially not a treasure of this magnitude." The search continued until one man gave a shout, having discovered the loose floorboards. Willa closed her eyes, certain all was lost. But when the man lifted the boards, there was nothing beneath. Yardley turned on Willa in fury. "Where is it? Where have you hidden it?" "There is nothing to hide," she insisted. After further fruitless searching, Yardley and his men departed with threats to return. Once they were gone, Willa turned to Edmund in confusion. "The treasure," she began. "How?" Edmund grinned and led her to the well. "Rufus showed me a secret tunnel under the cottage. It leads to a hidden chamber beside the well. I moved the treasure there while you were gathering firewood." Astonished, Willa followed him to discover a cleverly concealed underground room, dry and secure, where the chest now rested. "My clever boy," she whispered, embracing him. That night, while Edmund slept, Willa studied the rest of her great-uncle's journal. In its final pages, she discovered that Bartholomew had been more than a servant. He had been Lady Eleanor's confidant and protector, and had spent his life guarding her secret. The Blackwell family's crimes extend beyond theft. One passage read: "Lord Blackwell murdered his wife when she discovered his treachery against the crown. The evidence lies with the treasure." Indeed, at the bottom of the chest, Willa found documents detailing treason, correspondence with enemy kingdoms, plans to assassinate nobles loyal to the crown, and theft of royal taxes. Willa faced a decision. She could take the treasure and flee with Edmund, starting a new life elsewhere. Or she could seek justice, using the documents to expose the truth. The following day brought yet another visitor, a royal official named Sir Harold, investigating reports of disturbances. After careful consideration, Willa showed him the documents, but not the treasure. "These prove the Blackwell family's treachery," Sir Harold said gravely after examining them. "The crown has suspected this for generations, but lacked evidence." "What of Thomas Yardley?" Willa asked. "He claims rights to any Blackwell property." "His claim is false," Sir Harold replied. "He is no relation to the Blackwells, merely a fortune hunter who has long sought their rumored treasure." In the days that followed, royal guards arrested Yardley for attempted theft and trespassing. The documents Willa provided led to investigations of several noble families who had been complicit in the Blackwell's crimes. As reward for her assistance, the crown granted Willa official ownership of her farm and the surrounding lands, along with a portion of the recovered funds from the corrupt nobles. The Blackwell treasure, being of questionable origin, was claimed by the crown, but Willa had already set aside enough coins to secure her and Edmund's future before revealing its existence. With her newfound wealth, Willa restored the cottage to a comfortable home. She hired workers to clear the land, revealing fertile soil beneath years of neglect. The farm flourished, producing bountiful harvests. 3 years later, the once-abandoned farm had transformed into a prosperous estate. Willa had established a school for village children and a small workshop where local women made textiles. No longer did she wear threadbare clothing, though she remained modest in her dress, now able to choose garments that were both practical and dignified. Edmund, now 8, had grown strong and thoughtful. Rufus remained at his side, graying but still energetic. Together they continued to explore every corner of their land, occasionally finding small treasures Bartholomew had hidden, coins, books, tools, each with notes explaining their significance. On the anniversary of their arrival at the farm, Willa stood in the doorway of their home, watching Edmund play in the garden with village children. "Your great-uncle would be proud," said Matilda, who had become a regular visitor and friend. "He always said the land would find its rightful caretaker." "I never understood why he left the farm to me," Willa admitted. "We never met." Matilda smiled knowingly. Perhaps he knew more than he revealed. "Have you read all of his journals?" Willa shook her head. "There are still some I have not fully deciphered." His handwriting grew increasingly difficult in his later years. "Perhaps you should," Matilda suggested. "The greatest treasures are often those that tell us who we truly are." That evening, after Edmund was asleep, Willa opened the journal she had set aside months ago, struggling with its nearly illegible script. As she worked to decipher it, a passage suddenly became clear. "My dearest grandniece, though we never met, know that you come from stronger stock than you realize. Your grandmother was not a simple farmer's wife, as you were told. She was Lady Eleanor's daughter, hidden away for her protection. The Blackwell blood runs in your veins. This farm and all it contains is your birthright, returned at last to its rightful heir." Tears filled Willa's eyes as pieces of her family history fell into place. She was not merely a peasant woman who had stumbled upon fortune. She was the descendant of nobility, her inheritance restored through her great-uncle's careful planning. The next morning, Willa took Edmund to the garden they had planted together. "This land has always been meant for us," she told him. "And one day, it shall be yours to tend." "I shall care for it as you have, Mother," he promised. As they stood there, Willa reflected on how far they had come from that first day when they arrived at the seemingly worthless, abandoned farm. From devastation had come renewal, from loss had come discovery. The hidden riches had not merely been the gold and jewels, but the connections to her past, the promise of a future, and the home they had built together. The farm that had once appeared to be a burden had become their sanctuary and their strength. And Willa, once a destitute widow with nothing but her son and her determination, had found not only security but her true place in the world, rooted in the very land that had seemed so worthless upon first sight. In the distance, Rufus barked excitedly, having found something new to investigate. Edmund ran to join him, laughter trailing behind him like music. Willa smiled, knowing that whatever treasures might still be hidden on their land, none could compare to the life they now lived, a life built from the ruins of tragedy into something beautiful and enduring.